What's up, guys? My name is Justin. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are back on Gran Turismo 4 for another car story. And today we are talking about one of the most famous, recognizable, and legendary cars in the world, the Ford Model T. So let's do, I suppose, what is technically a launch, and then we'll talk about it. Oh yeah, all the power. Look at the acceleration. The speed is unmatched. It is faster than the Benz Patent motor wagon, so we're doing okay there. Anyways, this is the Ford Model T. Of course, was Henry Ford's kind of baby, the first mass-produced production car, the first car to be built using an assembly line. The list goes on and on. This was not the first car to have typical driving mechanics like we know them today, with obviously either 2 or 3 pedals, a gear shifter, and a steering wheel. That was like a 1916 Cadillac. I don't remember exactly. It was found once on like one of James May's programs or something. I don't remember. Maybe it was like American Top Gear. I don't remember. But anyways, this car, although we recognize it as kind of the first mass-produced modern car, if you want to think of it as such, it's not actually true, but it is still a pretty interesting thing. Of course, the most famous thing associated with this car is Henry Ford said you could get in any color as long as it's black, just because they were pumping them out so fast. Obviously, they only came in the original color of black, and so later I think you could get them in different colors. I think that this car was produced from like 1915 until 1926. And I believe was replaced by the Model A. Maybe that's not all exactly correct. Again, I'm not claiming ever to be a massive classic car enthusiast, certainly nothing this old. But we're moving along quite well here. 49 miles per hour is pretty absurd and essentially like a buggy. But it goes okay. It's got apparently a 2-speed transmission and basically bicycle tires. I mean, that was the whole thing, right? In the car this old. I think that's a fuel can or maybe an oil can or something on the left kind of running board there. Of course, this car was right-hand drive, apparently. I don't know. Whatever, but anyways, you can see the guy there operating the lever. We'll just hit the brakes here to show you in a sec why that's different. So you see there he's pulling like a hand lever, which is great detail by Gran Turismo 4. You can't quite make out the lever there, but essentially a lever on the steering wheel that you pulled down was your throttle. And I think you probably still have foot brake, I would assume, but really cool detail there from Gran Turismo to include that. But I don't know when they started doing various body styles. Obviously, all these were kind of carriage style when they first came out, like this, kind of 2 rows of 2. You know, a windshield basically, and then a cloth top essentially, and then of course motors, and there was gears in this car, of course, as we can see. So pretty unique, pretty specific, and very cool. Definitely one of the cooler cars you can think of to see. But no taillights, of course, just a red lamp there to signify the back of the car, basically. But it did have headlights, so again, you see things that are seen in modern cars still to this day. But then there are a lot of things that are gone by the wayside. Of course, this is like less than 20 years after the Benz Patent motor wagon, so definitely the car was still developing as an entity, and what made it good, what made it bad, things you wanted to keep in your car, things you didn't want to keep in your car, etc. So all still developing along as it went. But definitely very cool. And again, this is still basically, like you said, 19 or 20 years after the Benz Patent motor wagon. This was kind of the car I think of as still being kind of the transition period where, excuse me, they went from basically, you know, horse-drawn carriages without the horse, essentially. I mean, that's generally the shape of what this is. It's the carriage that you rode in, minus the horse at the front. Obviously, they put an engine in it and the transmission, all these other features, but it's basically that. And then once we got towards, you know, the Ford Model A and stuff of the later years going into the 1930s, that's when cars started to be more recognizable to like even classic cars we know today, and then remained somewhat unchanged until like the early 1950s post-war. So that's all just part of the development of car history. We're not really here to talk about that. I just wanted to highlight this car because it is so special. It is very unique and obviously very cool. And to see one of these preserved like I've done a couple of times, still like, you know, 100 years later plus, after we've seen them, you know, be ending production now. We're just coming up to about 100 years of since the end of production of this car, and it's pretty dang cool. It's not just cool, but it's, again, when you think about only 19 or so years after the start of the car, the Benz Patent motor wagon, that we were struggling to do like 10 miles an hour in, and you know, only had 1 gear and was very simple. To this, it doesn't seem like a lot of jumping technology, but that's pretty crazy considering they'd never obviously done anything quite like this before, and the fact that the Benz Patent motor wagon was like a one-off, and this is again mass-produced. There were millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of these, especially after World War I. And it was kind of the start of everybody having the opportunity at least to be able to own their own car. So very, very cool, very, very interesting, obviously historic and notable for all the right reasons, and definitely something that is very, very special in the car community, and very, very special if you ever get a chance to see one or ride in one or even drive one. They're obviously quite complicated from what I've heard to operate, as you would expect. There's a lot of different levers. I say ancient cars, old cars for the most part, like again, pre kind of standardization of what we think of as controls and levers in cars. You needed like 3 hands and 1 foot to operate a car. So obviously they eventually figured out where you can use both your feet and both your hands, which makes the most sense, of course, but this was kind of where some of those things started and where you ran into some of those issues. So that's going to be it. I hope you enjoyed this one. Again, Ford Model T, pretty special car, definitely something that's worth highlighting and looking at and talking about. So hope you all have a wonderful day. I appreciate you all so very much, and hope you come back next week for another Gran Turismo 4 car story and whatever we're going to talk about then. So that's going to be it for me. Till next time, as always, bye-bye.